Bitch drive a all white rank. Couldn't hit it if you niggas had aim. Lanes can't call and you lame. You had it and you lost it, all the shame. I can buy a Billy, don't talk to me. For a show 150, don't talk to me.
Coming out of the 2012 NBA Finals, one of the biggest stories people were talking about was the Oklahoma City Thunder's future. A roster that consisted of Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, even Serge Ibaka, and other quality role players. It was very, very apparent that at the moment, the Oklahoma City Thunder had a potential dynasty and a very bright future. Well, what happened? Because it's 2019 now, James Harden and Kevin Durant are no longer on the roster, as well as Serge Ibaka, and right now Russell Westbrook has failed to get out of the first round over the last 3 seasons, despite having players such as Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, Steven Adams, Jeremy Grant, Oladipo, Sabonis. The list goes on and on of the endless talent that he's had on his roster over the last 3 seasons. So what happened to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and who is responsible for their demise? In this video, we're going to be discussing, in my opinion, the top 3 candidates on who is responsible for the demise of the Oklahoma City Thunder. But before we go any further with this video, y'all make sure you drop a like down below. Also comment your opinions, and make sure you follow me on Twitter, because if you are not following me on Twitter, you are missing the live tweets that we've been doing over the playoffs. Make sure you do that as soon as this video is over. But back to the video at hand, let's discuss the first suspect. Now, the first suspect, in my opinion, we obviously got to start off with the number 1 person that everybody been hating on the Oklahoma City Thunder, and for good reason, because of his own failures, and that is Russell Westbrook. And what's crazy about him is that he is definitely one of the more controversial players in the NBA, and honestly I don't know why. I think his career is pretty straightforward. He's a guy that has squandered numerous opportunities, not just over the past few seasons, but even earlier on in his career. But as we look at Russell Westbrook's career, this is a guy that consistently, year by year, struggles in the postseason to get it done when it mattered most. Whether he was with Kevin Durant or without him, he always struggled in the postseason. Whether it was 2011 versus Dallas, 2014 versus the Spurs, hell, you could even look at the 2012 finals versus the Miami Heat, the blown 3-1 lead against the Golden State Warriors in 2016, and hell, even in the post-Kevin Durant era, Russell Westbrook has a lot of failures that a lot of people try to make excuses for, but now over the past few months, people are starting to understand why Russell Westbrook gets the criticism that he gets, especially after the loss that he just suffered against the Portland Trailblazers, missing Nurkic. I mean, this is a guy that over the past 3 seasons only has 4 playoff victories. Yes, he is 4-12 over the past 3 years in the postseason. So it is very apparent that Russell Westbrook struggles to get it done in the biggest moments, and that was definitely one of the biggest factors that I think Kevin Durant took before he left OKC. And in my opinion, when you look at Russell Westbrook's game, you cannot talk about the failures of the Oklahoma City Thunder and not mention this. Russell Westbrook is literally their second best player in the history of their franchise, and in this post-KD era, he has been given the responsibility to lead this roster, and he's been given so much talent that a lot of people just don't talk about, whether it's Carmelo Anthony and Paul George in an alleged big 3, or you can look at Paul George in his MVP breakout season. Sure, he's not going to win it, but it was an MVP caliber season this past year. Or you could also look at the year that he had Sabonis and Oladipo, and people viewed them as bench players going into the season, and people were saying that Russell Westbrook has to carry a bunch of players that shouldn't even be in a starting lineup. Meanwhile, they get traded the next season, and Oladipo becomes an all-star and an all-NBA performer, not just the all-NBA team, but an all-NBA defender as well, and Sabonis becomes one of the best bench players in the league. So it is very apparent that even when the management gives him sufficient help, Russell Westbrook just doesn't know how to get the job done. But is he the biggest culprit and the number 1 person to blame? Well, I don't think so, because there's another person that I think a lot of people are going to talk about as well, and justly so, and that is Kevin Durant. Say what you want about how Kevin Durant left Russell Westbrook and couldn't play with him because Russell Westbrook's play style is just all over the place and his IQ is so low. Regardless, Kevin Durant, if he is as great as a lot of people say he is, and I believe he is, he should have been able to get the job done in his time in Oklahoma City. And honestly, people always talk about Russell Westbrook's failures in the postseason, but they never ever talk about Kevin Durant's failures either. Kevin Durant is the same guy who choked against the Memphis Grizzlies in 2014, where he won the MVP and lost in the first round. And sure, he didn't have Russell Westbrook, but let's be honest, you're one of the top 3 players on the planet, and you lose to a lower seed in the first round of the playoffs? That's unacceptable. I don't care what anybody says about that. And hell, you could even look at 2016. In 2016, the 73-9 Golden State Warriors were down 3-1 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook had them on the ropes. And sure, Russell Westbrook did not hold up his side of the bargain, but let's not act like Kevin Durant held up either. It wasn't until Game 7 in the final minutes that Kevin Durant decided to start making shots because he didn't want to go home that postseason. But it was very apparent, at least in my eyes, that in Game 5 and 6, Kevin Durant should have won those games, but because of poor performances, he was unable to close out the Golden State Warriors. And what makes this whole entire situation of him losing to the Golden State Warriors in 2016 even crazier is that if he had actually beaten the 2016 Golden State Warriors and then beaten the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals, there would be no need for him to have to go join Golden State. He could have stayed in Oklahoma City. And this debate that we're having on who the best player in the league is, even despite the fact that Kevin Durant has won the past 2 Finals MVPs and has outplayed LeBron James back-to-back years, and some people still think that LeBron James is better than him, we would not be having that discussion because he would be the #1 consensus best player in the league. So say what you want about Kevin Durant and how he couldn't play with Russell Westbrook, but Kevin Durant is definitely responsible for a lot of those postseason failures that the Oklahoma City Thunder had during his tenure there. But despite all that, is he the #1 suspect and the person that I have to put all the blame on for the failure in Oklahoma City? Well, I can't say that either, because there's another person that I think a lot of people are leaving out of that equation, and it's not even a player. It isn't a coach, but in fact, it's the GM, Sam Presti. Sam Presti has been the GM of the Oklahoma City Thunder dating back to their time in Seattle. And if I'm being honest, a lot of people have given him too much credit for some of the moves that the Oklahoma City Thunder have been able to make. And honestly, a lot of the moves have been overstated and overrated. And he's made a lot of mistakes that people are just not going to talk about. Obviously, the biggest mistake that I think is still affecting this organization till this day, that is the James Harden trade. No matter what people say about James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant, no matter what, should never have been separated at all. Kevin Durant was an MVP candidate at the time, Russell Westbrook was an up-and-coming star, and sure, James Harden wasn't viewed in the light that he is today, but he was definitely still good enough to stay with this roster and was a young player that a lot of people still viewed as someone with a lot of promise. And to see Sam Presti trade James Harden, sure, he was not Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook at the time, but to see him trade James Harden and pick Harden over Ibaka as the person to trade off the roster for $4 million because you didn't want to go over the luxury tax, that is a shame. And it's especially a shame when you consider the fact that he had to spend more money on Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, and Russell Westbrook, that alleged super team that they had a year ago. He spent more money on that team than he would have had to spend on the original Oklahoma City Thunder team, where they had Kevin Durant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Ibaka included. But the fact that you trade James Harden, even in the offseason following the year that they went to the NBA Finals, these players were not even in their primes. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even think these players were at the age of 25, 26 years old at the time. So to see him trade James Harden, who is a very core piece to their success of getting to the NBA Finals, that was very disappointing. And to see how things went for the Oklahoma City Thunder following that, whether it was injuries to Russell Westbrook or Kevin Durant, or just failures in the postseason, it was very obvious and apparent that the Oklahoma City Thunder were going to struggle not finding that third option that they could pair with a Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. And to see people bash Russ and KD and not come at the person who originally caused a lot of the problems that they had to go through in the first place in Sam Presti, I think a lot of people need to understand that he is more responsible than a lot of people realize. But in conclusion, I know this is going to sound crazy, but Russell Westbrook is not the only person that should be blamed for the demise of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I get it, I'm viewed as a Russell Westbrook hater, but I'm not going to just put everything on him. Sure, he had his failures in the postseason, but Kevin Durant was along there with him. James Harden also failed in the NBA Finals as well. Ibaka sometimes didn't show up. And if I had to mention all of Paul George's failures in the postseason, we'd be here forever. So I definitely think that people should lay off of Russell Westbrook just a little bit when it comes to blaming him for everything that's transpired in Oklahoma City over the past few years, and you could even trace it back to a decade. It's not just him, it's also Kevin Durant, it's also Sam Presti, it's also the organization as a whole. And in my opinion, I think the organization, when you look at their management, I just think that they're very complacent when it comes to their success. Not everybody wants to be a championship team. Not everybody wants to spend that kind of money. Not everybody is willing to go the extra mile to become a dynasty. And I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder management definitely fall under that umbrella. They're content with being where they are. Sure, they'll never be a championship team, but they'll always keep making the playoffs, and they have box office players who a lot of people will come in droves to see, and they'll sell a lot of tickets. So you guys let me know your opinions in the comment section. Also, you guys let me know how you like this video, if I should make more videos like this, and make sure you drop a like. Also subscribe, hit the bell to be notified, and follow me on my social media, especially on Twitter. The link for them will be down below in the description box. Y'all have a great day. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Peace.